Before anything truly changes in your life, you must first encounter what appears to be disorder. Not order, not peace, not clarity. The psyche does not begin the process of transformation with serenity. No, it begins with disruption. It shakes you. Something inside you begins to unravel, often without explanation, and suddenly the life that once made sense to you, your routines, your relationships, your goals, begins to feel foreign. This is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that the unconscious has begun to stir. The deeper parts of your being, long ignored or hidden beneath the surface of your awareness, begin to rise up. They knock at the door of your waking mind and refuse to be silenced. Most people do not realize that the first movement of the soul is often a kind of internal revolt. You feel restless for no reason. You begin to question things you once accepted without thought. The job you've always had starts to feel like a prison. The people around you begin to sound hollow. Even your own voice becomes unfamiliar. This is the psyche beginning its process, not gently, but insistently. It is not chaos for chaos's sake. It is disruption with purpose. The unconscious does not rise unless it is time for something new to be born. We are conditioned to believe that discomfort means something is wrong, that when we feel anxious or lost or disconnected, we are broken. But in truth, these feelings are often the first signs of real change. They are the prelude to a necessary death. The death of the false self, the persona that you have built to survive, to please, to adapt. It begins to crack. The mask becomes too heavy. The old way of living no longer fits. You are not going backwards. You are being invited to see beyond what you've known. The psyche disrupts the surface so that the soul underneath can finally breathe. This disruption is not external. It is not about losing a job or ending a relationship or relocating. Those may be the visible consequences, but the true upheaval happens within. It is subtle at first. A tension, a mood you cannot shake, a strange feeling that you're being pushed from inside by something unseen. That push is real. It is the instinct of the soul. And the more you resist it, the more intense it becomes. What you do not attribute face consciously will surface unconsciously. It will speak through anxiety, through exhaustion, through a quiet sense that something is missing, even when nothing seems wrong. You might find yourself retreating from things you once loved. You might feel empty in places that once brought you joy. This is not depression in the clinical sense. It is the stripping away of illusion. It is the moment when your inner world begins to tell the truth, even if the outer world hasn't caught up. You cannot force this stage to end. You cannot make it tidy. You can only listen. Stay with it. Trust that the discomfort is intelligent. The psyche is not punishing you, it is preparing you. It is dismantling the structures that kept you asleep so that you might finally wake up. In this beginning stage, many turn back. They cling to the familiar even when it is lifeless. They beg the psyche to be silent again. But silence will not come, not now. Once this process begins, it must complete itself. You cannot go back to sleep once the soul begins to dream in the daylight. There is only forward. And forward in this case means inward. It means asking yourself questions you don't yet have answers to. It means standing in the middle of a life that no longer fits and daring to wait for one that hasn't yet arrived. The temptation will be to rush, to fix, to act, to escape the discomfort. But healing is not a sprint. Transformation is not instant. It is a slow unfolding. It is a shedding, layer by layer, of who you thought you were. And with each layer removed, you come closer to something essential, something real. You begin to sense, without needing proof, that there is something within you older than your fears, stronger than your doubts, and more enduring than your confusion. This is the self. Not the self others told you to be, not the self you constructed for applause, but the self that has been waiting, patiently, quietly, for the right moment to emerge. and that moment always begins with disruption. When you are on the threshold of a major shift in life, your inner world begins to speak in a different language. It no longer communicates in the rational tone of logic or structured thought. Instead, it speaks in images, in symbols, in feelings that cannot be easily explained. You may begin to have dreams that feel unusually vivid, charged with emotion, layered with mystery. Perhaps you find yourself encountering the same number again and again, or meeting strangers who say things that feel oddly significant. Maybe a song follows you, appearing in moments when you most need it. These are not coincidences. They are signs. The psyche does not operate like a machine. It behaves more like a living story, one that reveals itself through the symbolic and the poetic when profound transformation is near. What you once dismissed as random now begins to feel guided. A sentence in a book, a look from someone you barely know, a memory that suddenly arises without warning. They come bearing messages, if you're willing to listen. You feel the stirrings of something ancient moving through you. The psyche, preparing you for change, unveils the unconscious content of your life in these ways. And you must not interpret them literally. The language of the unconscious is metaphor. A dream of drowning does not mean you will drown. It may mean that your old identity is being submerged, so a new self can surface. A vision of flight may not suggest escape, but the urge for transcendence. The psyche chooses images that bypass your defenses. It knows you cannot always hear the truth directly, so it speaks slantwise. It wraps the truth in metaphor, in symbol, in feeling. And when you begin to notice, when you start to track these images and patterns, you begin to see that something within you is trying to guide you. It's not forcing you forward. It's beckoning, whispering, calling you not to leap blindly into something new, but to awaken to what you already know, deep down. The soul doesn't shout. It reveals. It uncovers. You may wonder why this language emerges only during times of transition. The answer is simple. When your surface life begins to crack, your deeper life begins to rise. The ego may resist, but the unconscious never forgets what you truly are. It remembers your longings, your wounds, your path. And it communicates through the images that have always lived within you. Archetypes, ancient stories, mythic patterns. You are not separate from these images. They are the essence of your nature. When you dream of the sea, you are not dreaming of water. You are encountering the vast emotional currents of the unconscious. When you meet a stranger in your dreams, you may be meeting your own forgotten self. The psyche is endlessly creative in its desire to show you what must be seen. And so, before change arrives in the outer world, it arises first in the inner one. If you are attentive, you will notice it, not in loud, obvious ways, but in subtle shifts. You may begin to feel drawn to a certain place, or a certain era, or even a story that echoes something in you. You may find that you're dreaming of old homes, former versions of yourself, ancestors you've never met. This is the psyche restoring connection to what was lost. It is reminding you that no great transformation can occur without remembering. The soul is not linear, it spirals. And before it moves forward, it returns. It revisits the forgotten so that the future may be built on something real. These moments, these symbols, are invitations. And yet, most people ignore them. They say it was just a dream, just a coincidence, just a passing thought. But there are no justs in the symbolic realm. Everything means something when the soul begins to stir. The trick is not to interpret everything rigidly, but to feel into it. To ask, not what does this mean logically, but what does this awaken in me? What mood does it bring? What memory? What truth does it nudge forward? Gently, insistently. When you begin to take your inner world seriously, you will realize that it has been speaking to you all along. Only now are you ready to listen. That readiness is itself a sign of transformation. You no longer wish to live only on the surface. You are willing to look beneath, to feel, to engage with mystery. And this willingness marks the beginning of your true journey. There will come a moment when the symbols become so clear, the patterns so precise, that you can no longer dismiss them. You will feel that your life is part of something larger, more intelligent, more meaningful than you had imagined. And when you feel that, even for a moment, you are not imagining it, you are awakening. That is how the psyche prepares you for what comes next. When life is preparing to shift in a profound way, you will encounter a figure that has always been with you, though perhaps you've never truly seen it. This figure is not a person, not a force outside of you. It is the part of you that you've kept in the dark. It is the version of yourself you learned to hide in order to survive, to be accepted, to be loved. It is your anger, your jealousy, your guilt, your shame. It is your power too, your creativity, your desire, your authenticity. This is the shadow. And when deep transformation is near, the shadow does not stay quiet. It emerges. It demands attention. It no longer allows you to pretend. You may notice that you are more easily irritated, that you react to things that once rolled off your back, that old memories, long buried, resurface without warning. You may feel exposed, as if some invisible mirror is being held up to you and revealing things you'd rather not see. This is not regression, it is confrontation. Not with the world, but with yourself. The psyche does not push the shadow forward to shame you, it does so to integrate you. What has been denied must now be acknowledged. What has been rejected must now be seen. You cannot become whole while cutting off half your being. This process is uncomfortable. It feels like losing control, and in many ways it is. You are losing control of the false self, the mask you've worn for so long that even you began to believe it was real. The shadow appears to disrupt that illusion. It comes with the uncomfortable truth that you are not only what you strive to be, you are also what you deny being. And unless you are willing to face the totality of who you are, you cannot change in any lasting way. Real transformation begins when you are honest, not just about your light, but about your darkness. It is easy to see the flaws in others. It is far more difficult to admit the same tendencies within yourself. But this is the work. This is the moment where you stop projecting your pain outward and begin the inward journey. The shadow is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It brings to the surface all the parts of you that were deemed unacceptable by society, by your family, by yourself. And yet, these very parts contain the energy you need to move forward. Hidden within the shadow is the vitality of the soul. You feared it because you were told it was dangerous. But danger is not the same as destruction. It is dangerous only to your illusions. Many people run from this stage. They deny it, they blame others, they say they are fine, they cover it up with positivity, with distraction, with noise. But the shadow will wait. It does not vanish because you ignore it. It will surface again and again until it is seen. And when you do finally turn toward it, something unexpected happens. You begin to feel relief. Not because it's easy, but because it's real. You begin to feel energy returning to you. Energy that was trapped in repression. Your anger, once denied, becomes clarity. Your fear, once hidden, becomes insight. Your sadness becomes compassion. You stop splitting yourself in two, you become whole. This confrontation is not a one-time event, it is a cycle. You will meet your shadow again and again at different stages, each time deeper, each time more honest. And each time you do, you will grow in strength. You will find that what once terrified you no longer holds the same power. You are no longer controlled by what you refused to face. You become someone new, not by becoming someone else, but by becoming more yourself than ever before. There is humility in this process. You see yourself clearly, flaws and all, and yet you do not collapse. You recognize your humanness. You begin to see others differently too, not as enemies, but as fellow travelers wrestling with their own shadows. You stop demanding perfection from yourself and from the world. You begin to live more truthfully, more fully, more freely. Not because everything is fixed, but because you are no longer afraid to see what is broken. This is what the psyche reveals when your life is about to change. It does not flatter you, it challenges you. It strips away your defenses so you can meet the parts of yourself that you left behind. And in doing so, it offers you a gift greater than comfort. It offers you authenticity. Because what you are becoming can only emerge when you stop hiding from what you are. Before transformation takes form in the outer world, something deep within you begins to fracture. You feel caught between two realities, the one you've known and the one you cannot yet see. You are not who you once were, and yet you are not quite who you are becoming. It's an in-between space, and it can feel like madness. You question your identity, your choices, your beliefs. You wonder if you've made a mistake or if something has gone terribly wrong, but nothing is wrong. You are standing in the threshold of profound change. The old is loosening its grip. The new is not yet fully born, and so you feel divided. This split is sacred. It is not a flaw in your evolution, it is the very structure of it. The psyche does not leap from one form to another in an instant. It passes through the unknown. The ego, which once clung tightly to roles and stories, begins to lose its authority. You stop being satisfied with the familiar masks you've worn. You no longer find safety in old definitions. This discomfort is the soul asking to be real, and that request cannot be answered by becoming more of what you were. It can only be answered by allowing what is emerging to come through, even when you don't understand it yet. In this space, it is common to feel like you're losing yourself, and in a way you are, but you are only losing the version of yourself that was never fully you. The part shaped by expectation, by survival, by adaptation. That version was necessary for a time. It protected you, allowed you to function, kept you moving. But the soul does not wish to remain in survival. It longs for expansion, for truth. And truth often arrives first as confusion, as contradiction, as the sense that you are being torn in two. You begin to notice a tension within you. One part still clings to what is safe, while another begins to pull towards something unknown. This is not weakness, it is the mark of transition. You are being stretched between two worlds, the world of the past and the world of potential. And that stretch is uncomfortable. It reveals all the places where your life has become too small for your spirit. It shows you the habits, the identities, the environments that no longer match your deep, and yet stepping away from them feels like stepping into a void. The in-between stage is rarely celebrated. It is not a place of certainty. It is not productive in the usual sense. You may feel lost, unmotivated, detached from your usual drive. But this pause is not emptiness. It is gestation. Something is forming inside you, quietly, invisibly. You are being restructured from within. And that cannot be rushed. The psyche is like nature. It unfolds in cycles, not in straight lines. You are in the winter before the spring, the silence before the song. This phase often comes with emotional intensity. You might cry without knowing why. You might wake up feeling heavy, even after sleep. You might feel nostalgic for a version of yourself that no longer fits. Or you may feel grief for something you haven't even lost yet. These are not signs of failure. They are signs that your inner landscape is shifting, that you are releasing the known in order to make space for what is next, and that release always carries emotion. Let it. Let the tears come. Let the ache move through you. These are not setbacks. They are signs of depth. The soul does not move through intellect alone. It moves through feeling. You do not need to have all the answers right now. In fact, answers would only get in the way. What you need is presence, honesty, a willingness to stand inside your own unfolding without demanding clarity before it's time. Let yourself be lost for a while. Let yourself not know. There is wisdom in uncertainty. There is guidance in stillness. The person you are becoming does not emerge through force, but through surrender, through allowing, through listening inward instead of reaching outward. You are not going backwards. You are dissolving what no longer serves. And that dissolution is not death, it is preparation for rebirth. You may not recognize yourself in this moment, and that is a good sign. It means the old identity has begun to dissolve. It means you are making room for the truth. And though it feels unfamiliar now, there will come a time when you look back at this season and see its necessity. You will see how every moment of confusion carried within it a hidden instruction. You will see how what felt like falling apart was, in truth, falling into alignment. This is the sacred tension of transformation, to live between the no longer and the not yet. As the psyche moves toward a major shift, it begins to draw attention to all the attachments that must now be loosened, not by force, but by necessity. Life cannot bring you into new ground while your soul is still tethered to what was. And so, one by one, you are asked to let go. You are asked to release what you once called stable, secure, or permanent. This is not punishment, it is purification. The psyche is preparing space for something new to be born, and birth can only occur where there is room to receive it. You can feel that things are slipping through your fingers. Relationships that once felt central may begin to dissolve. Goals that once ignited you may start to feel hollow. Roles you once took pride in may no longer satisfy. And though you may try to cling to these familiar structures, they no longer respond to your grip in the same way. They no longer offer the comfort they once did. This is not a sign that you have failed, as a sign that you are outgrowing the container you once fit inside. Letting go is not a single decision. It is a slow internal unfolding. There may be days when you feel ready to walk away from everything. There may be others where the fear of change pulls you back into old patterns. That is normal. The soul does not demand perfection. It asks only for honesty. And if you can be honest about what is no longer alive in your life, even if you are not yet ready to release it fully, that is already a sacred beginning. Often, we believe that letting go means losing something precious. But what we forget is that what is truly ours, what is truly aligned with the deepest current of who we are, cannot be taken from us. Only what is no longer resonant will fall away. And it must. Because if we carry old attachments into new terrain, we will distort the very transformation we are meant to undergo. To be reborn, we must first die to who we thought we were. And this dying is subtle. It is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is simply the moment you realize a story you've told yourself no longer rings true. It takes courage to surrender to this process. It is far easier to cling to what is known, even when it no longer nourishes us. But the psyche is relentless in its movement toward wholeness. It will not allow you to remain in a life that contradicts your essence. And so, it will place discomfort where comfort once was. It will stir restlessness in places you once called home. It will ask you to question what you have accepted without reflection. This questioning is not meant to shame you. It is meant to awaken you. As you begin to let go, you will notice a peculiar kind of grief, not just over what is being lost, but over the time you spent trying to make it work, over the parts of yourself you quieted in order to hold on, over the dreams you once had that no longer fit. This grief is sacred. It is the soul honoring everything that brought you to this moment, while also telling you it is time to move on. Do not rush it. Let it move through you like a river. Let it cleanse the space that will soon be filled with new meaning. Letting go is not about giving up. It is about making space. It is about trusting that something beyond your current comprehension is guiding you, and that guidance often comes disguised as emptiness, as silence, as the unraveling of what you once held dear. But if you look closely, you will see that the space being created is not a void. It is a womb, a place of potential, a place where something true, something lasting, something aligned can finally take root. And here is where many people turn back, because it is in this space of in-between, where the old is gone but the new is not yet clear, that fear begins to whisper. It tells you to go back to what you know, to settle, to rebuild the old life just as it was. But if you can hold steady, if you can stay faithful to the process, even when the road is dark, you will find that what comes next is beyond anything you could have imagined from the vantage point of the past. You will begin to feel lighter, freer, not because life has become easier, but because you are no longer carrying what is not yours to carry. You will begin to hear your own voice more clearly. You will feel the return of energy you didn't know had been drained from you, and slowly a new life will begin to form, not from force, but from alignment. This is how the psyche prepares you for a great shift, not by adding more, but by asking you to release. There comes a moment before a major shift in your life, when silence begins to take on a different quality. It is no longer the absence of sound. It becomes presence itself. The distractions begin to fall away. The noise that once kept your mind spinning now feels distant, even irrelevant. You find yourself drawn into stillness, not because you choose it, but because life is inviting you there. You may resist at first. You may try to fill that quiet with movement, tasks, conversation, or entertainment, but none of it satisfies. The psyche is no longer interested in distraction. It is preparing for emergence, and it does so through silence. In this stillness, something unexpected begins to happen. You begin to hear yourself again, not the surface voice, not the conditioned thoughts that repeat like echoes, but the deeper voice, the one that speaks softly, beneath the noise. That voice has always been there. It has whispered to you in dreams, in longing, in moments of intuition you brushed aside. But now, the silence makes it audible. It has waited patiently for you to stop running, to stop clinging, to stop pretending you didn't know what you've always known. This is when the truth begins to rise, not as a dramatic revelation, but as a gentle unfolding. You begin to see the places where you've betrayed yourself in order to belong. You see the ways you've dimmed your light to avoid judgment, the ways you've played small to feel safe. And at the same time, you begin to remember something more essential. You remember the parts of yourself you buried, not because they were wrong, but because the world around you didn't know how to hold them. Now, the silence holds them. Now they begin to stir. This stillness is not a pause before life resumes. It is life speaking in its most honest form. You may feel lost. You may feel like nothing is happening. But in reality, everything is happening. The foundations are being rearranged. The roots are growing deeper. You are being aligned, not with what the world expects of you, but with what your soul came here to express. And alignment does not come through striving. It comes through listening, through paying attention to the subtle, to the inner, to the quiet pulse beneath all appearances. As this voice grows louder within you, you may notice a subtle shift in perception. You stop chasing what you used to chase. You stop needing validation from those who could never see you clearly. You begin to understand that the only approval you ever truly needed was your own. That the life you long for is not built through performance, but through presence, through the courage to be exactly as you are, without apology. And yet, this path is not easy. The deeper you go into your own silence, the more aware you become of what has been out of alignment. You see more clearly. You feel more deeply. You begin to recognize the ways in which your outer life has been constructed to avoid your inner truth. This recognition can feel like loss, but it is actually a return. You are coming home to yourself, and everything that does not reflect that self will now begin to fall away. You may find that people around you don't understand this shift. You may appear quieter, more distant, less reactive. Some may say you've changed, and they're right. But the truth is, you are not becoming someone new. You are unbecoming everything that isn't you. The silence has revealed it, and now you can't go back to pretending. The soul, once awakened, does not return to sleep. It moves forward, no matter how gently, no matter how slow. And once it moves, it draws the rest of your life into motion. This is the beginning of real power, not the power of control, but the power of authenticity. The power of knowing who you are beneath all masks. The power of being rooted in your own experience instead of being tossed by the winds of others' expectations. You begin to live from within, not from reaction, but from intention. And life begins to respond differently. Not because circumstances have suddenly become easier, but because you are meeting them from a different place. From wholeness, not fragmentation. As the transformation nears, you no longer need to prove anything. You no longer need to fight to be seen. You simply are, and that is enough. You walk more slowly. You speak with more care. You stop grasping and start trusting. And this trust is not blind. It is born from the clarity that silence has revealed to you. It is born from the steady voice within that says, "You are on the path now." And when you begin to walk in this way, with your inner world no longer hidden or suppressed, you start to see signs around you, conversations that feel aligned, opportunities that seem to appear without effort, a sense of peace that no longer depends on your circumstances. These are not coincidences. They are reflections. Your outer world is beginning to reflect the alignment of your inner being. This is not magic. This is what happens when you stop running from yourself and begin to live from your center. And so, the silence that once felt uncomfortable becomes sacred. It becomes the doorway through which your life truly begins. If you feel the ground shifting beneath you, don't run. Sit with the silence, listen to your soul, and trust that what feels like falling apart is your psyche making space for your true self to emerge. Your transformation has already begun. Honor it, embrace it, walk with it. If this touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and explore more videos just like this. Thank you.